Irish fighter John Cooney, just 28 years old, has passed away 1 week after suffering a devastating injury in his last fight. A rising star with dreams of championship glory, Cooney's career was cut short in the most heartbreaking way possible. From his early days training in the gym to his biggest victories inside the ring, Cooney fought with heart. But on January 26, 2025, his final fight took a tragic turn, one that would leave the sport mourning yet another fallen warrior. This is the story of his last battle, the medical emergency that followed, and the growing concerns over fighter safety in boxing, with 5 other fighters losing their lives in the past year alone. The question must be asked, how many more will have to suffer before real changes are made? John Cooney's journey to becoming a champion was one of dedication, perseverance, and an unrelenting love for the sport of boxing. Born and raised in Ireland, Cooney found his passion for fighting at a young age. Like many great boxers before him, he stepped into a gym as a kid and never looked back. Boxing wasn't just a sport to him. It was a way of life. He trained relentlessly, honing his skills and pushing himself to new levels with every session. His natural talent, combined with an unmatched work ethic, quickly set him apart. From the amateur ranks to the professional stage, Cooney climbed the ladder the hard way. He wasn't handed opportunities. He earned them. Every victory came with countless hours of training, sparring, and sacrifice. And when he finally got a shot at the Celtic super featherweight title in November 2nd, 2023, he made sure to seize the moment. Facing off against Liam Gaynor, Cooney delivered a performance that proved he was more than just a rising contender. He was a legitimate force in the division, with a relentless attack and unwavering determination. He secured a hard-fought victory, claiming the belt and putting the boxing world on notice. But just as his momentum was building, Cooney faced a major setback. A hand injury forced him to step away from the ring for nearly a year, halting his rise. When he was on the verge of breaking into bigger opportunities for many fighters, an extended layoff can be devastating. The road back is never easy and doubts often creep in. Would he return the same fighter? Would he still have that edge that made him dangerous? But for Cooney, giving up was never an option. He trained through the pain, stayed disciplined, and prepared himself for a comeback. And when he finally returned in October 2024, he proved that he hadn't lost a step. Stepping into the ring against Tampella Motorisi, Cooney fought with the hunger of a man, determined to reclaim his place. It wasn't just about winning, it was about making a statement. He delivered a dominant performance, showing the same power, resilience, and skill that had made him a champion in the first place. That victory re-established him as a top-tier fighter, setting the stage for what many believed would be an even greater future. What made Cooney special wasn't just his talent, it was his heart. He wasn't the type of fighter who coasted on natural ability. He was a workhorse, a grinder, a man willing to push himself beyond his limits to achieve greatness. His aggressive style made him a fan favorite, but it was his spirit and determination that truly defined him. He was the kind of fighter who never backed down, never took shortcuts, and always left everything he had in the ring. That warrior mentality is what made him a champion. It's also what made his tragic passing so devastating. Just as he was on the verge of even bigger opportunities, just as his career was reaching new heights, everything came to a heartbreaking end. Cooney had all the tools to go further in the sport, and he had the mindset to keep improving. He wasn't just a rising star, he was a fighter with the potential to leave a lasting mark on boxing. But in a brutal sport where every fight carries risks, Cooney's relentless determination to push forward would ultimately lead to the battle. He couldn't recover from his final fight, was supposed to be another step toward greatness. Instead, it became the moment that took everything away. And now, as the boxing world mourns his loss, the question lingers, could more have been done to prevent this tragedy? Fight night January 26, 2025 was supposed to be another defining moment in John Cooney's career. He stepped into the ring at Ulster Hall in Belfast, ready to defend his Celtic super featherweight title against a tough challenger, Nathan Howells. Cooney had trained tirelessly for this bout, determined to solidify his reign as champion. The crowd was electric cheering for the Irish fighter, who had already proven his resilience time and time again from the opening bell. The fight was a war both men came to win, and neither was willing to back down. Cooney fought with his signature aggression, pushing the pace and landing powerful shots. But Howells was no easy opponent. He absorbed the punishment and fired back with his own brutal combinations. Round after round, the two fighters traded blows, in what was quickly becoming a grueling battle of endurance and willpower. By the later rounds, it was clear that Cooney was struggling. He had taken significant damage, and his movements weren't as sharp as they were earlier in the fight. But true to his warrior spirit, he refused to quit. He kept pushing forward, determined to finish what he started. Then came the ninth round, the moment everything changed. Howells unleashed a relentless assault, landing a barrage of clean shots to Cooney's head. The champion tried to fight back, but the damage was accumulating. Seeing Cooney in trouble, the referee made the call. He stepped in and stopped the fight. It was a heartbreaking end for Cooney, who had given everything he had. But at the time, no one could have predicted just how serious the consequences of this stoppage would be immediately after the fight. Signs of trouble began to appear. Cooney, exhausted and battered, struggled to maintain his balance. He seemed disoriented, his body language concerning to those ringside as he left the ring. It was clear that something wasn't right. Moments later, his condition worsened and he collapsed. Medical personnel rushed to his aid, quickly realizing the severity of the situation. He was immediately transported to Belfast Royal Victoria Hospital, where doctors worked desperately to assess the damage. The diagnosis was devastating: an intracranial hemorrhage, a severe brain bleed, caused by the repeated blows to his head. Time was critical, and Cooney was rushed into emergency surgery in an attempt to relieve the pressure on his brain and save his life. As news of Cooney's condition spread, an outpouring of support flooded social media. Fellow boxers, trainers, and fans sent messages of encouragement, hoping for a miracle. His fiancée, Emmeline, and his family remained by his side, praying for any sign of improvement. The entire boxing world held its breath, hoping that the young champion would somehow pull through. But as the hours passed, uncertainty grew. Cooney remained in critical condition, his future hanging in the balance. The brutal reality of boxing had once again revealed itself. One fight, one night, one moment could change everything. And for John Cooney, this fight had turned into the greatest battle of his life, one that even his warrior spirit might not be able to overcome. For 7 agonizing days, John Cooney remained in the intensive care unit at Belfast Royal Victoria Hospital, locked in the toughest fight of his life, surrounded by his loved ones, including his fiancée Emmeline, and his grieving family. He lay unconscious, as doctors did everything they could to save him. Each passing hour was filled with hope, fear, and prayers. Outside the hospital, the boxing community rallied in support. Fellow fighters, trainers, and fans sent messages of encouragement, clinging to the hope that Cooney's fighting spirit would somehow pull him through. Vigils were held, and social media was flooded with tributes and well wishes. The entire sport stood still, waiting for any sign of improvement. But deep down, many feared the worst. Then on February 2nd, 2025, 1 week after his final fight, John Cooney's battle came to a heartbreaking end. The news that everyone had dreaded became a reality. Cooney had succumbed to his injuries. His family and promoter Mark Dunlop released a statement confirming his passing, sending shockwaves through the boxing world. A young champion, a beloved son, a fiancé, and a fighter with so much more to give gone too soon. Tributes poured in immediately. Legendary Irish boxer Barry McGuigan, visibly shaken, spoke to the press saying, "He was just a lovely kid. It's shocking and heartbreaking. He has so much ahead of him. Many other fighters, past and present, echoed the same sentiments, remembering Cooney not just for his talent in the ring, but for his kindness, work ethic, and relentless determination. Perhaps the most emotional words came from his fiancée, Emmeline, who spoke publicly for the first time since his passing. Through tears she shared, John lived and died chasing his dream. Boxing was his life, and he gave everything to it. He fought with all his heart, but this was a fight he couldn't win. Her words were a painful reminder of the risks fighters take every time they step into the ring. Even in his passing, John Cooney's story did not end there. His family, in an incredible act of generosity, revealed that his organs would be donated to help others in need. John was always someone who wanted to give. His mother shared. Even now he's giving others a chance at life. It was a final act of kindness from a fighter who had spent his life giving everything he had, whether it was in the ring, to his loved ones, or now to strangers, who would get a second chance at life because of him. His death was not just a loss for boxing. It was a loss for everyone who knew him. A warrior to the very end, John Cooney's name will never be forgotten. But as the boxing world mourns, one question remains. How many more lives will be lost before real changes are made to protect the fighters who risk it all? John Cooney's tragic death is not an isolated incident. It's part of a growing crisis in boxing. The sport has always been dangerous, but the number of fighters suffering fatal injuries in the ring is becoming increasingly alarming. In the past year alone, multiple boxers have lost their lives due to fight-related injuries, raising urgent questions about safety measures and whether enough is being done to protect those who step between the ropes. Cooney's death marked yet another devastating loss. But before him there were others. Ubaid Horror, November 2nd, 2024. The promising young fighter collapsed weeks after his last fight and never recovered. His family later revealed that he had been struggling with headaches in the days following the bout, signs of a potential brain injury that went unnoticed until it was too late. Lemuel Silesia, July 2024. Saliza suffered severe head trauma in a brutal title fight. Though he walked out of the ring on his own, he was rushed to the hospital hours later. After losing consciousness, days later he passed away. Sheriff Lowell made 2024 in what should have been a night of celebration, the start of his professional career. Lowell tragically lost his life. After being knocked out in his pro debut, he never regained consciousness. Arden Dembo, April 2nd, 2024. A hard-hitting fight ended in disaster. When Ndembo was knocked out cold, he fell into a coma and later died from his injuries. Kazuki Onaguchi, February 2nd, 2024. The Japanese fighter suffered a subdural hematoma, bleeding on the brain, after taking sustained punishment in a grueling bout. Despite the best efforts of doctors, he didn't survive. The harsh reality is that boxing is a sport built on taking and delivering punishment. Fighters push their bodies beyond normal limits, enduring pain and exhaustion for the sake of competition. But at what cost? How many more fighters need to lose their lives before real changes are made? The dangers of brain injuries in boxing are well documented. Repeated blows to the head can cause concussions, long-term neurological damage, and in the worst cases, fatal brain bleeds. Fighters often experience symptoms, headaches, dizziness, and confusion, but they push through, fearing that admitting weakness could cost them a fight, a title shot, or even their career. The pressure to tough it out is deeply ingrained in boxing culture. This raises the question, are corner teams and referees doing enough to protect fighters? Could some of these deaths have been prevented? With earlier stoppages in many cases, fighters take unnecessary punishment late in fights, unwilling to quit, while their teams hesitate to throw in the towel. The idea of going out on your shield has long been glorified, but is it worth the risk of permanent injury or death? There's also the issue of post-fight medical care. Fighters are often cleared too quickly after fights, with only basic examinations. That may not catch underlying brain injuries. Should there be mandatory post-fight scans for fighters who take excessive damage? Should boxing commissions implement stricter protocols for monitoring a fighter's health in the days and weeks following a fight? John Cooney's death, along with the lives lost before him, is a painful reminder of boxing's brutal reality. The sport is built on courage, discipline, and sacrifice. But when does that sacrifice become too much? Fighters risk everything for their dreams. But the question remains, is enough being done to protect them from the ultimate price? John Cooney's tragic death has, once again, ignited discussions about fighter safety in boxing. How many more young fighters need to lose their lives before meaningful changes are made? Boxing is a sport of incredible skill, discipline, and heart, but it is also one of the most dangerous. While fighters understand the risks when they step into the ring, that doesn't mean the sport shouldn't do more to protect them. The reality is that many of these deaths may have been preventable. While boxing will always carry risks, there are clear steps that could be taken to improve fighter safety without compromising the integrity of the sport. More thorough medical screenings for fighters. Should boxing commissions implement stricter medical evaluations before and after fights? Fighters endure repeated head trauma throughout their careers, and undetected brain injuries could prove fatal. More frequent MRI scans, neurological exams, and in-depth medical assessments could help identify potential risks before it's too late. Stricter stoppage rules. Many fatal injuries in boxing occur in the later rounds of fights, when fighters have already taken significant damage. Should referees be trained to recognize early warning signs and stop fights sooner? Should corner teams be encouraged to throw in the towel more often, even if it means disappointing a fighter? Better post-fight medical evaluations. Fighters often leave the ring with no idea of the severity of the damage they've sustained. Many deaths in boxing occur not immediately, but hours or days after the fight, when brain injuries worsen. Should fighters who take heavy punishment be required to undergo mandatory hospital scans? Should commissions enforce a mandatory recovery period with medical supervision before fighters are allowed to return to training? These are not radical ideas. They are common sense changes that could save lives while still preserving the sport. If boxing truly values its fighters, then it needs to take real steps toward making the sport safer for those who risk everything inside the ring. John Cooney's death is a painful reminder of the brutality of boxing. He was a young champion, a fighter with his whole future ahead of him, and in one night everything was taken away. He died chasing his dream. But at what cost? Cooney was more than just a boxer. He was the son, a fiancé, a friend, and a warrior. His death should not be just another statistic in the long history of boxing tragedies. His name should be remembered not just as a talented fighter, but as a wake-up call for the sport to do better. His family's final act of generosity, donating his organs so that others could have a second chance at life, shows the kind of person he was. Even in death, John Cooney was giving, but he should have had so many more years to give, to live and to fight. John Cooney was a fighter, a champion, and a man who gave everything to the sport he loved. But his tragic death raises an important question. How many more fighters have to suffer before real changes are made? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Should boxing introduce stricter safety measures? Should referees and cornermen be more proactive in stopping fights? What can be done to prevent another tragedy like this? And if you want to stay updated on the latest boxing news, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Boxing is a sport of warriors. Warriors deserve to be protected too.